No nurse lasted a week with the billionaire sheikh until the foreign nurse did what no one else dared to do. Before we begin, tell us in the comments which city you're watching from. And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. 3 nurses ran through the gates of Al-Hadi Palace as if escaping a fire. The first held her suitcase in one hand and her shoe in the other. The second was crying into her phone, yelling something about suing someone. The third stopped in the middle of the parking lot, looked back, and whispered, "God help the next one." Emily Carter walked past them with a backpack over her shoulder, sunglasses on her head, and a calm smile on her face. "Dramatic people," she said aloud, adjusting her bag strap. The palace coordinator, a woman named Fatima, who looked like she had given up on life, stood at the marble entrance with a clipboard and zero hope. "You're the American nurse?" Fatima asked, studying Emily from head to toe as if she were evaluating a soldier before battle. "That's me. Emily Carter, ready for duty," she said, offering a cheerful handshake. Fatima didn't take it. "Did you read the contract?" "I did." "The whole contract?" "Even the small print about not suing the palace in case of psychological trauma." "I thought it was creative." Fatima sighed deeply. "Listen carefully. Sheikh Samir Al-Hadi is complicated. Complicated like complains about the food, or complicated like throws chairs. Complicated like 15 nurses in 6 months. Emily blinked. "Wow, that's almost an Olympic record. This isn't a joke. I know, but if I don't laugh, I'll cry, and my mascara is only waterproof to a certain degree." Fatima didn't smile. She just handed Emily an ID badge, turned, and started walking down endless white marble hallways lined with crystal chandeliers and heavy silence. Emily followed, trying not to look impressed, but it was hard. The place was bigger than 3 hospitals combined and more beautiful than anything she'd ever seen, even in the home decor magazines her mother collected. "He's on the 3rd floor, East Wing," Fatima muttered as they climbed a staircase that seemed to never end. "Try not to take things personally. He isn't mean. Just impossible." "I know impossible. I worked in an ER in New York on New Year's Eve. Trust me, I've seen everything." Fatima stopped in front of a carved wooden double door, looked at Emily with a mix of pity and respect, and knocked 3 times. Silence. "Come in," a deep, irritated voice said from inside. Fatima pushed the door open, gave Emily a quick gesture, and practically ran off. Emily took a deep breath, put on her professional smile, and stepped inside. The suite was absurd. King-size bed, silk curtains, heated floors, a balcony overlooking Riyadh. And in the center of it all, standing near the window, was him. Sheikh Samir Al-Hadi, tall, broad shoulders, strong jawline, dark, intense eyes that seemed to pierce through anyone, and holding a silver cane like a medieval sword ready for battle. He looked her over from head to toe, making no effort to hide his disdain. "You're the new one? I'm Emily. Nice to meet you, Your Highness," she said, closing the door behind her. "You won't last." Emily blinked. "Excuse me? You won't last," he repeated slowly, as if speaking to a child. "None of them do. You can leave now and save us both time." Emily crossed her arms. "Well, that's the warmest welcome I've ever received." "Was that rehearsed or spontaneous?" Samir narrowed his eyes. "I don't need another nurse hovering over me, testing me, treating me like an experiment. I'm dismissing you before you even start." "How convenient. But here's the thing. I signed a contract, and unlike your other 15, I need this job. So I'm sorry to say, Your Highness, but you're stuck with me." His jaw tightened. No one had ever answered him like that. "You don't understand. I'm ordering you to leave. And I'm politely declining. You can't decline a royal order." "I just did." Samir took 2 steps toward her, leaning on his cane, and Emily noticed, even angry, even arrogant, he was clearly in pain. The way he moved his left shoulder, the tension in his jaw, the slight tremor in his hand gripping the cane, her tone softened, just a little. "Look, I get it. It must be awful having strangers constantly coming and going, poking, questioning, taking notes. But I'm not here to be your enemy. I'm here to help. And if you give me one chance, just one, I promise I won't treat you like an experiment." Samir stared at her in silence. Those dark eyes studied every inch of her face, searching for flaws, lies, weaknesses. But Emily didn't look away. "1 week, he finally said, his voice low and dangerous. "If in 1 week you annoy me, ask a stupid question, or try to give me a lecture about positivity, you're out." Emily extended her hand. "Deal." He looked at her hand as if it were a trap, but after a long moment, he shook it. His hand was warm, firm, and trembling slightly. By the way, Emily said, letting go of his hand, just so you know, I've seen men far scarier than you whining about a fever. So relax, Your Highness, you don't intimidate me. Samir was completely speechless, and for the first time in months, something close to a smile, small, irritated but real, almost appeared on the corner of his mouth. Almost. Emily lasted exactly 17 hours before Samir decided to really test her. At 6 in the morning, he rang the silver bell beside the bed, 3 times, loud, as if summoning a royal assembly, and waited. Emily appeared at the door of the suite with her hair in a messy bun, uniform wrinkled, and a cup of coffee in her hand. Good morning, Your Highness. Did you sleep well, or spend the night planning how to torture me? Samir, sitting on the bed with pillows stacked behind his back and the expression of someone about to enjoy a show, ignored the question. I want tea. Emily blinked. Please? Tea. Now. Got it. Forgot the magic word at home, huh? Happens. She turned to leave. Wait. Emily stopped, looked over her shoulder. Yes? Not just any tea. I want traditional mint tea, served according to royal protocol. Fresh leaves, silver teapot. 3 minutes of infusion. Exact temperature, 185 degrees Fahrenheit. She stared at him. You have a tea thermometer? I do. Of course you do. Emily sighed. Anything else? Want me to sing a song while I make it? Don't be ridiculous. Just checking. 20 minutes later, Emily came back with a silver tray, a steaming teapot, and the look of someone clearly improvising. Samir watched her every move as she placed the tray on the table beside his bed. Is that the correct teapot? It's a teapot. I didn't ask if it's a teapot. I asked if it's the correct one. Emily picked up the teapot, turned it around, and pretended to inspect it like a museum piece. Looks pretty correct to me. Shiny, silver, holds hot liquids. FDA approved. The what? Food and Drug Administration, American agency. We approve everything. Samir narrowed his eyes. You're mocking me. Me? Never. She poured the tea into the cup with the care of someone trying to defuse a bomb. Here you go, Your Highness. Pot mint tea. Hot, traditional, with all the respect my lack of royal ceremony training allows. He took the cup, smelled it, took a sip. Pause. It's cold. Impossible. It is cold. Emily crossed her arms. Okay, I'll redo it. And use the correct teapot this time. There's an incorrect one. 3. Oh dear Lord. On the second try, Emily returned with another teapot, this one with gold details and a slightly less patient expression. Samir took a sip, made a dramatic pause, and set the cup back on the saucer. Sugar. Emily took a deep breath. You didn't ask for sugar. I'm asking now. Amazing. She grabbed the sugar bowl from the tray, conveniently already there, and placed it in front of him with a forced smile. Anything else? Want me to taste it first to make sure it's not poisoned? Samir almost smiled. Almost. No. But I want you to organize my medication schedule. It's already organized. Reorganize it. Why? Because I want it. Emily grabbed the clipboard from the bedside table, looked at the list of medications, then looked at Samir. Your schedule is perfect. Correct intervals, balanced doses, optimized timing. If I change anything, it'll make it worse. I don't care. Reorganize. Your Highness, with all due respect, no. The silence that followed was so heavy, Emily could almost hear her own heartbeat. Samir looked at her as if she'd just committed high treason. You just told me no? Technically, I said no with an all due respect in front of it, so it was polite. No one tells me no. Welcome to the American experience, Your Highness. We're annoying like that. The 2 maids changing the sheets at the other end of the room froze. One whispered something in Arabic that probably meant she's getting fired in 3, 2. But Samir didn't fire Emily. He just kept staring at her, as if trying to decode an impossible puzzle. You're the most irritating nurse I've ever met. Thank you. I'll put that on my resume. That wasn't a compliment. I know, but I'll pretend it was. Samir leaned back against the pillows, clearly exhausted but too stubborn to admit it. Leave. Gladly. Emily picked up the tray and turned toward the door. Wait, she stopped and looked back. What now? Want me to rearrange the pillows too? Samir hesitated, just for a second, but Emily noticed. The pain's worse today? He looked away. None of your business. Actually, it literally is my business. It's in the contract. Page 3, paragraph 2. I'm fine. Of course you are. Emily set the tray back on the table, grabbed the stethoscope hanging from her neck, and stepped closer. Take a deep breath. I don't need. Breathe. Samir glared at her, clearly annoyed, but after a tense moment, he obeyed. Emily placed the stethoscope on his chest, listened carefully, and frowned. Your heart beats fast. Because you're irritating. Or because you're in pain and trying to hide it like a stubborn teenager. I'm not a teenager. Then stop acting like one. Emily took the digital thermometer. Open your mouth. I won't. She slipped the thermometer in before he could finish. Beep. Mild fever. Nothing serious, but you need rest. Emily wrote on the clipboard. And before you ask, no, you can't get out of bed today. No, you can't have meetings. Yes, you're going to take your medicine on schedule because I'm good at my job and you're too stubborn to admit you're suffering. Samir stayed silent for a long moment. Then, against all odds, he said, You're unbearable. I know. It's part of my charm. And for the first time since Emily arrived at the palace, Samir al-Hadi actually smiled. It was small, quick, almost invisible, but it was there. And as Emily left the room carrying the tray of lukewarm tea and her wounded pride, she thought, okay, maybe I can last more than a week. She didn't know that Samir, alone in his suite, was still smiling. And she definitely didn't know that Fatima, standing on the other side of the door holding a stack of resignation papers, was, for the first time in months, thinking about tearing them all up. The scream came at 3 a.m. Emily woke from a deep sleep, jumped out of the guest room bed next to the Sheikh's suite, and ran barefoot across the marble floor, heart pounding. When she opened the door, she found Samir bent over at the edge of the bed, one hand clutching his chest, the other gripping the sheet so tightly his knuckles were white. Your Highness, he tried to speak, but only a choked sound came out. Emily turned on the lamp, rushed to his side, and knelt on the floor. Look at me, Samir. He raised his eyes, and she saw something she didn't expect. Fear. Pure, raw, real. I can't breathe. Yes, you can. Look, I'll show you how. Emily took his hand and placed it on her own chest. Feel this? Breathe with me. Slowly. Samir shook his head, desperate. It's not working, because you're breathing like a vacuum cleaner. Stop. Breathe. Slowly. He tried, failed, tried again. Emily held his face in her hands, forcing eye contact. Listen to me. You're Sheikh Samir al-Hadi. You rule an entire kingdom. You're not going to be defeated by a panic attack. Now breathe like a normal person, please. He blinked. Did you just tell me to breathe like a normal person? It worked, didn't it? You stopped gasping. Samir realized she was right. His breathing had slowed down. Still uneven, but better. Emily picked up her stethoscope. I'm going to listen to your heart. Don't move. She placed the instrument on his chest and listened closely. The heartbeat was still fast, but not dangerous. It's a panic attack, not cardiac. You'll be fine. Samir closed his eyes, exhausted. I was. I know, but you're not. Emily grabbed a glass of water from the nightstand and handed it to him. Drink, slowly. He obeyed, taking 3 small sips. His hands were still shaking. Does this happen often? Emily asked, sitting beside him on the bed. Samir didn't answer. Your Highness, I need to know. If it happens often, we need to adjust your treatment. Sometimes, he admitted quietly, when I wake up from nightmares. About what? He opened his mouth, closed it, looked away. Emily didn't push. She just sat there in silence, letting him choose. After a long pause, Samir whispered, About her. Emily frowned. Her who? My fiancée. He swallowed hard. She passed away, 3 years ago. The weight of those words filled the room like smoke. Emily felt her heart tighten. I'm sorry. Everyone says that. Samir looked out the window, where the moon lit up sleeping Riyadh. But no one understands. No one asks how it happened. No one wants to know what I feel. They just want me to get over it, move on, get married again, and you don't want to. It's not that I don't want to. He rubbed his face with both hands. It's that I can't. Every time I think about moving on, I feel like I'm betraying her memory. Emily took a deep breath. Can I say something without getting fired? Samir made a vague gesture as if to say, go ahead. I think you're confusing loyalty with prison. Remembering her, honoring her, that's beautiful. But staying trapped in the pain? That's not love, Your Highness. That's punishment. She paused. And I'm sure she wouldn't want that for you. Samir turned to look at Emily. His eyes were red, but dry. You didn't know her. No, but I know you. And it's clear you're the kind of man who loves with everything he has. So she was probably the kind of woman who loved that way too. And someone who truly loves doesn't want to see the other person suffer forever. Samir stayed silent. Emily stood up, picked up a blanket, folded on the armchair, and placed it over his shoulders. Lie down. Rest. I'll stay here until you fall asleep. You don't have to. I know, but I'm staying anyway. She sat in the armchair next to the bed, pulled her legs up, and got comfortable. By the way, just wondering, do you snore? Samir blinked, confused. What? Snore. Make noise while you sleep, like a bear or a truck engine. I don't know. Great, I'll find out. If you do, I'm throwing a pillow. For the first time that terrible night, Samir smiled, a real smile, small, tired, but genuine. You're strange. Thank you. I'll add it to my resume next to annoying. He lay down, pulled the blanket up to his chin, and closed his eyes. Emily sat there, watching his breathing slow down, his face muscles relax, the weight of the past years fading away, even if just for a few hours. When she was sure he was asleep, she whispered, "You'll be okay, Samir, I promise." And without her knowing, Samir heard it. When Emily woke up, it was morning. Sunlight filled the suite through the silk curtains, and she was completely crooked in the armchair, her neck aching, her hair looking like it had been attacked by a fan. Samir was sitting on the bed, watching her with an expression Emily couldn't quite read. "Good morning, sleeping beauty," he said in a tone that was almost amused. Emily rubbed her eyes. "What time is it?" 8. You slept 5 hours in an armchair. Impressive. I've slept in worse places. Once I dozed off standing during a 12-hour shift. She stretched, wincing. "How are you feeling?" "Better." He paused. "Thank you for last night." Emily smiled. "You're welcome. Comes with the package. Annoying but efficient nurse." Samir almost laughed. Almost. "Would you like breakfast?" he asked. Emily blinked. "Are you inviting me to breakfast?" "No, I'm ordering you to eat breakfast. With me." "Because." He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "Because you'll faint if you don't eat something." How thoughtful. Emily stood up. "But only if there are pancakes." "There are pancakes. Then I accept your order, Your Highness." When she left to get ready, Samir stayed there, alone, with a strange feeling in his chest. It wasn't pain. It wasn't fear. It was something else. Something he hadn't felt in a long time. And for the first time in years, Samir al-Hadi realized that maybe, just maybe, he could live again. Breakfast with Samir had been surprisingly normal. But Emily had learned long ago that normal never lasted long in a royal palace. She was putting medical files away on the suite's bookshelf when a book fell. Old pages scattered across the marble floor, and something rolled under the bed. A small bottle. Emily bent down, picked it up, and froze. It was an old medicine bottle. The label faded. Expiration date 2 years ago. She looked at the shelf, pulled out another book, more bottles hidden, then another, and another. 7 bottles in total, all expired, all hidden like dirty secrets between pages of Arabic poetry. "What are you doing?" Emily spun around. Samir stood at the door, still in his robe, his expression caught between surprise and panic. "I could ask you the same thing." Emily raised the bottles. "What is this?" "Give them back." "Answer first." Samir crossed the suite in 3 long strides and tried to snatch the bottles from her hand. Emily stepped back. "Oh no, now I need to know. What are you hiding?" "It's none of your business. I'm your nurse. Literally everything about your health is my business." She turned one of the bottles and read the label. "This is an anti-anxiety medication. High dose, prescribed 3 years ago. Why are you keeping this?" Samir clenched his fists. "Because I need it." "Need it? Or can't throw it away?" Silence. Emily lowered her voice but didn't let go of the bottles. "Samir, tell me, please." He looked away, his jaw tight. "They were prescribed after she died. I took them to sleep, to stop thinking, to function. And you still take them?" "No." He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "I stopped months ago, but I can't throw them away. I know it's ridiculous. I know I sound like some secret patient." Emily let out a laugh. "Sorry, but you just used the exact words I was about to say." Samir blinked. "What? Secret patient. I was about to call you that." She set the bottles on the table. "Look, I get it. Throwing them away feels final. Like closing a door you're not ready to close. It's more than that." Samir sat on the edge of the bed, defeated. "Those pills, they were the only thing that worked when I couldn't breathe. When I woke up in the middle of the night thinking I'd lose my mind. And now I still wake up like that. But I don't take anything anymore." "Because you're afraid of getting dependent?" "Because I'm afraid that if I take them again, I'll never stop." The weight of those words filled the room. Emily sat beside him. Not too close. But close enough. "You know emotional trauma is real, right? It's not weakness. It's not nonsense. It's a wound. Just like any other. And wounds need to be treated." Samir turned to her. "I'm the sheikh of an entire kingdom. I can't have emotional wounds. I need to be strong. I need to lead. I need to be humanly interrupted. Because surprise, you are. And humans feel pain. Humans suffer. Humans keep expired pills because they don't yet know how to let go of the past. He stayed silent. Emily picked up the bottles one by one and placed them in his hand. Here's my proposal. We'll throw these away. Together. Now. And if you panic, I'll hold your hand and we'll breathe like normal people. Deal? Samir looked at the bottles, then at Emily, then back at the bottles. What if I can't? Then we'll try again tomorrow. And the next day. And the next. Until you can. He took a deep breath, then slowly stood up and walked to the bathroom. Emily followed him. Samir stood in front of the trash can for a long moment, holding the bottles as if they were made of glass. I hate this, he whispered. I know. I hate feeling weak. You're not weak, you're just tired of carrying the weight alone. Samir closed his eyes. Then, with a quick motion, like ripping off a Band-Aid, he tossed the bottles into the trash. The sound of them hitting the bottom echoed in the bathroom. Emily took his hand. Breathe. He did. Once, twice, 3 times. I did it, Samir said, almost in disbelief. You did. I actually did it. Yes, Your Highness, and the world didn't end. You didn't fall apart. You just let go. Samir looked at Emily, and for the first time she saw something new in those dark eyes. Hope. Thank you, he said, voice rough. You're welcome. Emily released his hand. Now come on, let's eat something. Emotional drama makes you hungry. Samir laughed, a low but real sound. You're impossible. I know, it's part of the package. They went back to the suite, but when Emily turned to grab her clipboard, she noticed Samir was still standing there, looking at her. What is it? Nothing. Just... He hesitated. Why do you care so much? Emily paused. Because someone has to. And apparently, no one else is doing the job right. But you barely know me. True. But I know pain. And I know what it's like to be alone in it. She smiled, but there was sadness in her eyes. No one should have to go through that alone, Samir. Not even a sheikh. Something changed in the air between them. It wasn't just professional respect. It wasn't just friendship. It was something else. Deeper, more dangerous, and they both realized it at the same time. Samir stepped back as if he'd touched something hot. I need to rest. Of course. Emily nodded a little too fast. I'll organize the files. She left the suite quickly, her heart racing. On the other side of the door, Samir leaned against the wall, ran a hand over his face, and whispered to himself, "What's happening to me?" But he already knew the answer, and it scared him more than any panic attack ever had. Emily couldn't sleep that night. She kept turning in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about warm hands and glances that lasted a second longer than they should. At 2 a.m, she gave up. She grabbed a book and went out to the balcony of the guest room. That's when she heard it. It wasn't a scream this time. It was worse. Someone was crying, low, muffled, desperate. Emily dropped the book, crossed the hallway, and stopped in front of Samir's suite door. She knocked softly. Samir? Silence. She knocked in. Samir, it's me. Emily. Can I come in? His voice came weak, broken. Go away. Emily opened the door anyway. He was sitting on the floor, leaning against the side of the bed, his head in his hands. His shoulders shook. She had never seen a man so powerful look so shattered. Hey. Emily knelt beside him. What happened? I told you to leave, and I pretended not to hear. It's part of my annoying charm. She touched his shoulder gently. Talk to me. Samir lifted his face. His eyes were red and swollen. I dreamed about her. Emily didn't have to ask who her was. Tell me, he hesitated. Then, as if releasing something that had been trapped for years, he began to speak. It was an accident, a stupid, preventable accident. We were coming back from a trip. I was driving. It was raining hard. And then his voice broke. Then a car ran the light. I swerved, hit the barrier. She was in the passenger seat. Emily closed her eyes. Samir? She was in a coma for 3 days. I held her hand. I said I was sorry. I begged. I promised I would fix everything, but she never woke up. He ran his hand over his face, trying to hold back the sobs. And the last thing I said to her before the crash was, we'll talk later. Because I was angry. Because she wanted to postpone the wedding, and I didn't agree. And now later will never come. The tears came freely now. Emily sat down next to him on the cold floor, her shoulder against his. It wasn't your fault. Yes, it was. I was driving. I swerved. You did what anyone would have done. You tried to avoid it. You tried to protect her. She turned to him. Do you think she would blame you? Samir was silent. Answer me. Do you think she would blame you? I don't know, he whispered. I think I do. Emily took a deep breath. I think she loved you too much to want you spending the rest of your life punishing yourself for something you couldn't control. But I deserve to be punished. I deserve to carry this. Why? Because you survived? Emily shook her head. Samir, surviving isn't a crime. Pain isn't punishment, and living isn't betrayal. He turned to her, his gaze so intense it made her heart skip a beat. How do you know all this? Emily gave a sad smile. Because I once carried guilt that wasn't mine either. My dad had a heart attack when I was 22. I was in college. He called saying he didn't feel well. I said, "Go to the hospital, Dad, I'll call you later." She paused. He went alone, died alone. And I never forgave myself for not dropping everything and going with him. Samir touched her hand, slowly, hesitant. You couldn't have known. Exactly. Emily intertwined her fingers with his, and neither could you. We're not fortune tellers. We're just human. They sat there on the cold marble floor in silence, holding each other's hands as if it were the only thing keeping the world from falling apart. After a long moment, Samir said, "You know what's worse? The Royal Council wants me to marry again. They say it's my duty, that the kingdom needs heirs, that I need to move on. As if love were something you can replace like clothes. And you? What do you want?" Samir looked at their intertwined hands. I don't know anymore. Before, I just wanted everyone to leave me alone, to stop pressuring me, to stop trying to fix my life. But now, he lifted his eyes, met hers. Now I'm not sure I want to be alone. The air between them grew heavy. Emily let go of his hand, too quickly. I think you need some rest. Emily, come on, up. She stood, offering her hand. Let's get you to bed before you catch pneumonia sitting on this cold floor. Samir took her hand, letting her help him up. He was tall, very tall, and suddenly Emily realized how close they were. Thank you, he said softly, for everything. You're welcome. Emily tried to sound professional, failed miserably. It's my job. No, it's not. Samir took a step back as if forcing distance. No other nurse ever did what you do. Maybe because no other nurse was stubborn enough to handle you. He almost smiled. Maybe. Emily turned to leave, but before reaching the door, she heard. Emily? She stopped. Stay. Just until I fall asleep, please. She should say no. She should keep it professional. She should walk out, go back to her room, and pretend this night never happened. But when she turned and saw Samir there, vulnerable, human, real, she couldn't do it. All right, but only until you fall asleep. She sat down in the armchair. Samir lay back on the bed and pulled up the blanket. Do you really snore? Emily asked, trying to lighten the mood. Haven't you found out yet? No, you sleep like a normal person. Honestly, kind of disappointing. Samir laughed, softly, tired. Sorry to disappoint. That's all right, I forgive you. He closed his eyes, and a few minutes later, his breathing grew slow, deep, calm. Emily stayed there, watching. And she realized, with a tightening in her chest, that she was starting to feel something she shouldn't, something dangerous. Something that could ruin everything. Fonima pressed her ear against the wood, heard the silence, and picked up the phone. She had a duty to the palace, and that duty came before anything else. The morning began with Emily dragging Samir out of bed at 6 a.m., literally. Get up, come on, move. Samir opened one eye, looking at her as if Emily had completely lost her mind. Are you insane? No, but you'll go insane if you keep lying in this bed 23 hours a day. Emily pulled the blanket away. Come on, we're going for a walk. A walk? Samir sat up, indignant. You want me to walk? Yes, with your legs, one foot in front of the other. Familiar with the concept? Of course I'm familiar with it, but I'm sick. You're better, much better, and now you need to rebuild your strength. Emily crossed her arms. So get up, put on something comfortable. We're taking a stroll in the garden. Samir stared at her for a long moment. And if I refuse, then I'll tell Fatima you keep chocolate under your pillow. He froze. How do you know that? I'm a nurse. I know everything. Emily smiled, victorious. Now let's go. You've got 5 minutes to get dressed. Samir muttered something in Arabic that was probably not a compliment, but he stood up. 15 minutes later, they were in the palace's inner garden. A marble fountain in the center, fragrant flowers, a path of white stones shaded by palm trees. And Samir, wearing a simple tunic and running shoes, looked like a prisoner being led to his execution. This is ridiculous. Keep walking. My dignity is being destroyed. Your dignity will survive. Now move those legs. They started walking, slowly. Samir limped a little, still using his cane for support, but he was moving. After 2 minutes, he stopped. There, I walked. Emily turned, hands on her hips. You walked 10 yards. And that's enough. Samir, Emily, walk. No, Walk. He huffed but kept going. When they finished the full circle around the garden, about 5 minutes, Samir practically collapsed on the stone bench by the fountain. I need to rest immediately. Emily rolled her eyes. You're fine. Take a deep breath. I can't. I'm exhausted. You're not exhausted. You're out of shape. That's technically the same thing. Emily let out a laugh. You're dramatic. I'm realistic. You're spoiled. Samir opened his mouth to argue, but noticed she was laughing. Laughing for real. And that sound was good. Better than good. So he decided not to complain, at least not much. Tomorrow we'll do it again, Emily said, sitting beside him on the bench. You're relentless. Thank you. I'll add it to my resume. In the following days, the routine became a ritual. Morning walks, breathing exercises in the afternoon, stretching at night, and Samir complained a lot. This isn't stretching, it's torture. Breathe and reach. I am reaching. You're pretending, I can tell. How can you tell? You don't have X-ray vision. Yes, I do. Comes with the annoying nurse package. Fatima, watching from the second-floor window with a cup of tea in her hands, smiled. For the first time in 3 years, the sheikh looked alive. And that American nurse, with her clumsy, no-filter ways, was achieving something 15 professionals couldn't, making Samir want to get better. She took a sip of her tea and thought, maybe that girl is the best thing that ever happened to him. But not everyone thought the same. In the palace medical wing, Dr. Kamal, the chief physician and trusted man of the Royal Council, flipped through Samir's health reports with a dark expression. He's improving, the assistant said cheerfully. I know, Dr. Kamal replied, closing the folder. And that's a problem. The assistant frowned. How is that a problem? Isn't that exactly what we want? Not when the improvement comes from unauthorized methods. He picked up the phone. Breathing, meditation, walks? That's not medical protocol, it's improvisation, and improvisation has no place in royal treatment. But it's working. That doesn't matter. Dr. Kamal dialed a number the council needs to know. Meanwhile, in the garden, Emily was trying to teach Samir how to meditate. Close your eyes. Why? Because that's how it works. And what if I don't want to close my eyes? Then you'll just sit there like a stubborn statue. Emily sat down on the ground, cross-legged. Come on, sit here. Samir looked at the ground as if it were lava. On the ground? Yes, Your Highness, on the ground, like regular people. I'm not regular people. Today you are. Now sit. He sighed but sat down, awkwardly, grumbling. This is uncomfortable. You'll get used to it. Now close your eyes and breathe. I'm breathing. Breathe slowly. I'm breathing slowly. No, you're breathing like an irritated person, because I am irritated. Emily opened her eyes and looked at him. Samir was sitting cross-legged, eyes closed, brow furrowed, breathing with the determination of someone about to explode. She couldn't help it. She started laughing. What is it? Samir opened his eyes. You look like you're trying to solve an impossible problem. I am trying. It's called meditation. No, it's called tension pretending to be peace. Emily was still laughing. Relax, for heaven's sake. I don't know how to relax. Obviously, you're the most tense man I've ever met. Samir looked at her, and for the first time, he laughed too. A short, low, but genuine laugh. Do you really think I'm the worst patient you've ever had? Without a doubt. But also the funniest. They stayed there, sitting on the garden floor, laughing like two ordinary people who, for a moment, forgot all about titles, expectations, and invisible walls. It was one of the best moments Emily had in weeks. Until Dr. Kamal's voice echoed from across the garden. Miss Carter, I need to speak with you, now. The laughter stopped. Emily stood, brushing the grass from her pants. Samir stood too, tense. What does he want? I don't know, but it can't be good. She was right. Dr. Kamal crossed the garden, a folder under his arm and an expression that clearly said, You're in trouble. Miss Carter, come with me. There are some concerns about your treatment methods. Emily folded her arms. What concerns? We'll discuss it in private. No, Samir stepped forward. We'll discuss it here, now. Dr. Kamal looked at the sheikh, then at Emily, and smiled, a cold smile. As you wish, Your Highness. But the medical board is questioning the legitimacy of Miss Carter's methods. And frankly, so am I. Emily felt her stomach drop, and she realized the battle was just beginning. Inside the palace, Dr. Kamal opened his mouth to continue his speech about questionable methods when the sharp sound of high heels echoed through the marble hall. Everyone turned. A stunning woman walked through the garden as if she were on a runway. A turquoise silk dress, dark hair perfectly curled, flawless makeup. Behind her, Rashid al-Hadi, Samir's brother, walked with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Samir," the woman exclaimed, opening her arms. "My dear cousin." Samir froze. Emily noticed immediately. He wasn't happy. "Layla," Samir said, forcing a smile. "What a surprise. A wonderful surprise, I hope." Layla came closer and kissed both his cheeks. "Rashid told me you were getting better. I had to see it for myself." Rashid joined the group, greeted Dr. Kamal with a nod, then turned his gaze to Emily. "And you must be the famous American nurse." Emily held out her hand. "Emily Carter, nice to meet you." Rashid shook her hand with unnecessary firmness. "I've heard a lot about you. Apparently, you've caused some interesting changes around here." The tone made it clear that interesting wasn't a compliment. "Positive changes," Samir cut in, tense. "Emily has been extremely competent, I'm sure she has." Rashid smiled, though his eyes stayed cold. "But I think we all agree the sheikh needs something more traditional, something aligned with our customs." Emily crossed her arms. "With all due respect, what the sheikh needs is effective medical treatment, and the results speak for themselves." "Unauthorized results," Dr. Kamal added quickly. "Authorized or not, he's better," Emily shot back. Layla, who had been quietly watching, gave a delicate laugh. "My, what a dedicated nurse." She looked at Samir with exaggerated admiration. "You're lucky, cousin. It's rare to find someone so involved in their work." Emily felt her stomach twist. There was something in Layla's tone, sweet as melted sugar, but far from sincere. Samir cleared his throat. "Layla, what brings you here? Really?" Layla blinked, pouting slightly. "You say that as if I needed a reason to visit my favorite cousin, but since you asked," she glanced at Rashid, who nodded. "I came to talk about the future." "What future?" "Our future." Layla took a step closer and touched Samir's arm. "Rashid told me the council has been pressuring you to move on, and I thought, why not consider someone who already knows you? Someone who understands your position?" Emily felt something tighten in her chest, something awful, something she didn't want to name. Samir looked at Layla, then at Rashid, then, briefly, at Emily. "Layla, I appreciate your concern, but you don't need to answer now." Layla interrupted with a smile. "I just want you to know the option exists, and that I would be honored." Rashid put a hand on his brother's shoulder. "It's an excellent proposal, Samir. Layla is royalty. She knows the protocols. It would be perfect." "Perfect." Dr. Kamal agreed, as if anyone had asked for his opinion. Emily looked at Samir, waiting for him to say something. Anything. But he just stood there in silence, trapped between expectations and demanding looks. "Well," Emily said, forcing a professional smile, "I think I'll let you have your family discussion. I have medical reports to organize." She turned and started walking toward the palace. "Miss Carter," Rashid called. Emily stopped, glanced over her shoulder. "Yes? Thank you for your services so far, but I think it's time we consider other care options." Emily's blood boiled. "Other options? The sheikh is healthier than he's been in the past 3 years." "The numbers don't lie. Numbers aren't everything," Dr. Kamal added. "Of course they are." Emily turned fully, facing both men. "He's walking, sleeping better, having fewer episodes. That's not a questionable method, that's progress." "Emily," Samir said quietly, almost like a warning. She looked at him, and what she saw broke her. Fear, not physical fear. Fear of displeasing, of disappointing, of not being what others expected. Emily took a deep breath, forcing her professionalism back into place. "Excuse me," and she left. Inside the suite, Emily threw her clipboard on the desk harder than she meant to. "Idiot," she muttered to herself. "You're an idiot, Emily Carter." "Idiot for what?" Emily spun around. Samir was standing at the door, still looking like someone who had just survived an ambush. "Shouldn't you be outside with your future fiancée?" Samir closed the door behind him. "She's not my future fiancée." "Oh no?" Because it sounded pretty official. Rashid was practically planning the wedding. "Rashid plans many things without asking me, and you let him." Samir frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you let him." Emily crossed her arms. "You stand there, quiet, while they decide your life, while they parade women in front of you like you're some chess piece. It's not that simple." "Of course it is. You're the sheikh, you're in charge, but you act like you don't have a voice." "Because I don't," Samir snapped. "Do you think it's easy? Do you think I can just do whatever I want? I have responsibilities, expectations, an entire family, an entire kingdom waiting for me to what? To marry someone you don't love? To live unhappy just to please the council? And what do you suggest? That I send everyone away and do whatever I please?" "Yes," Exactly that. They stood there, frozen in the middle of the suite, breathing hard, staring at each other with dangerous intensity. Then Samir said quietly, "What if what I want is impossible?" Emily swallowed hard. "Nothing is impossible. You don't understand." He looked away. "There are things that can't happen. Because of protocol, rules, because of everything." The silence that followed was suffocating. Emily wanted to say something. She wanted to shout that rules were meant to be broken, that love mattered more than expectations, but the words wouldn't come out, because she knew. Deep down, she knew Samir was right. They came from different worlds. He was royalty. She was a nurse from Kansas drowning in debt. And fairy tales didn't happen in real life. "I'll prepare your medication," Emily said, her voice trembling. "You must be tired." Samir didn't answer. She left the suite without looking back. And for the first time since arriving at the palace, Emily Carter wondered if she should have accepted that job at all. On the other side of the door, Samir leaned against the wall, closed his eyes and whispered, "I'm sorry." But Emily didn't hear. Emily couldn't sleep. She tossed and turned in bed until midnight, gave up, and decided that since she was awake, she might as well check on Samir's vitals. Just professionalism, she told herself as she walked down the hallway. Nothing but professionalism. She knocked softly on the suite door. No answer. She opened it slowly and found Samir sitting on the balcony, looking out at Riyadh lit up at night, still fully dressed, clearly as sleepless as she was. "Can't sleep?" Emily asked, leaning against the doorway. He turned, surprised. "Apparently neither can you." "Touche." She stepped in and closed the door. "Want me to make some tea? Or should I pretend I'm here strictly for medical reasons?" Samir almost smiled. "You're here for strictly medical reasons." "Of course. Totally. 100%. Emily crossed her arms. "Now sit down, I'm checking your blood pressure." He obeyed, sitting in the chair near the balcony. Emily grabbed the blood pressure monitor, wrapped the cuff around his arm, and realized her hands were shaking. "Nervous?" Samir asked, watching her. "No, just tired." "Liar." Emily looked up and met his eyes. She was too close, dangerously close. "Your blood pressure's normal," she said, removing the cuff a little too quickly. "Emily, heart rate's fine too. Everything looks good." "Emily, stop." She stopped, took a deep breath, looked at him. "What do you want me to do, Samir? I mean, really, because I'm trying to keep things professional, but you keep looking at me like that, and..." "Like what?" "Like that. Like I matter." Samir stood up slowly, still holding her gaze. "You do matter." Emily's heart raced. "Don't say that." "Why not?" "Because it makes everything harder. It's already hard." He took a step closer. "Since the first day you came here and told me you wouldn't leave just because I told you to." Emily stepped back but hit the side table. "Trapped. We can't do this. I know. You're the sheikh. I'm your nurse. There are rules, protocols, expectations. I don't care. But I do." Emily placed her hands on his chest to keep some distance. "I care. Because when this goes wrong, and it will, I'll be fired, deported. And you'll still be here, being pressured to marry Layla or whatever Princess Rashid throws in front of you." Samir held her wrists. Gentle, firm. "What if I don't want to marry Layla? Then you'll marry someone else. Someone suitable. Someone who isn't me. What if I want you?" The words hung in the air, heavy, impossible to ignore. Emily felt her eyes sting. "Don't do that. Don't make me believe in something that can't happen." "Who says it can't?" "The whole world. Your family. The council." She tried to pull her wrists free, but he held tighter. "Samir, I'm an American nurse drowning in debt who can barely pay rent. You're royalty. We live on different planets. Then maybe it's time I change planets." Emily blinked. "What?" Samir released her wrists but didn't move away. He raised a hand slowly, touched her face, his thumb brushed her cheek. "You reminded me what it's like to be alive again, to want to wake up in the morning, to feel." His voice was rough, vulnerable. "And I don't want to go back to living in the dark." Emily closed her eyes. A tear slipped down. "That's not fair." "I know. You're making me want impossible things." "Good, because I want them too." She opened her eyes, and he was right there. So close she could feel his warmth, the scent of spices, and something else that was uniquely him. "We shouldn't," Emily whispered. "I know," but neither of them moved. Samir leaned in. Emily held her breath. His lips were just inches from hers when the door burst open. "Samir, we need to talk about..." Rashid stopped mid-sentence. Behind him, Fatima froze, eyes wide. Emily jumped back so fast she hit the table, knocking over the blood pressure monitor, almost falling. Samir caught her by the arm, keeping her from falling. which only made things worse. Rashid looked at them, then at Samir's hand on Emily's arm, then back at his brother's face. What exactly is going on here? It's not what you think, Emily said, way too fast. Oh, really? Rashid crossed his arms. Because it looks exactly like what I think. Fatima stepped in, closed the door behind her, and looked at Emily with a mix of panic and disappointment. Miss Carter, what's happening here? I was checking his vital signs. Emily grabbed the monitor from the floor like it was evidence. Routine nightly protocol. At midnight? Rashid raised an eyebrow. Alone? With the door closed? I always close the door. Patient privacy is important. Emily, Samir began. No. Rashid raised a hand. Let me guess, you're going to tell me this was innocent, that nothing was happening, that I misunderstood. Samir's jaw tightened. It's none of your business. None of my business. Rashid stepped closer. You're the sheikh. Everything you do is my business, the council's business, the whole kingdom's business. This is ridiculous, Emily muttered. Rashid turned to her, eyes cold. You, be quiet. Don't talk to her like that, Samir said, his voice low and dangerous. Or what? You'll send me away? Challenge me. Rashid laughed, but there was no humor in it. You can barely get out of bed, Samir, and you want to play the hero for a nurse who clearly crossed every professional line? She didn't cross anything. Oh no? Rashid pointed at the two of them. You were inches apart, alone, in the dark. And you expect me to believe nothing happened? Silence. Fatima cleared her throat. Maybe Miss Carter should go rest. It's late. Excellent idea, Rashid agreed. And tomorrow morning, we'll have a long conversation about her future here at the palace. Emily felt her stomach drop. I didn't do anything wrong. Not yet, Rashid said, but you were about to. He left, slamming the door. Fatima looked at Emily with sadness. You should be more careful, dear, and she left too. Emily stood there, frozen in the middle of the suite, her hands shaking, her heart breaking. Samir took a step toward her. Emily, no. She raised her hand to stop him. Don't say anything. Just don't. And she walked out, leaving Samir alone once again in the dark. Emily didn't sleep. At 6 a.m, 2 guards knocked on the guest room door. Miss Carter, the Royal Council requests your presence. Now, she knew this was coming, but knowing didn't make it any less terrifying. She dressed in her uniform with trembling hands, tied her hair back, and followed the guards through endless hallways to a room she had never seen before. The council chamber. Dark wooden walls, a huge U-shaped table. 7 men seated like judges, all wearing stern expressions. And in the center, Rashid. Miss Carter. He gestured toward the single chair in the middle of the room. Sit. Emily sat, folded her hands in her lap to hide the shaking. I'll get straight to the point. Rashid began, flipping through a folder. We've been informed of multiple violations of professional protocol during your time here. Violations? Emily repeated. What violations? One of the older councilmen, with a gray beard, cleared his throat. Inappropriate intimacy with the patient, unauthorized treatment methods. And last night, behavior that clearly crossed the limits of a professional relationship. Emily felt her blood boil. Behavior? I was checking his vital signs. At midnight, Rashid raised an eyebrow. Alone, with the door closed? I always close the door. It's called patient privacy. Ever heard of the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act? The council members exchanged puzzled looks. HIPAA, Emily explained, impatient. American Medical Privacy Regulation. Learned it in college. First week. We do not follow American regulations here, another councilman said flatly. Clearly, because if you did, you'd know firing a nurse for doing her job is ridiculous. Ridiculous? Rashid leaned forward. Miss Carter, you were hired to take care of the sheikh's physical health, not to get emotionally involved, not to implement questionable methods, and certainly not to, he paused dramatically, seduce him. I'm sorry, what? Multiple witnesses reported inappropriate closeness between Yushu and the sheikh. Closeness? He was having panic attacks. I was doing my job. Your job doesn't include spending nights in his suite. I spent one night, because he asked me to, because he was scared, because no one else cared enough to stay. The silence that followed was tense. Rashid closed the folder. Your termination is effective immediately. You have 2 hours to pack. A flight back to the United States has been arranged for this afternoon. Emily stood, shaking with anger. You can't do this. We can, and we are. He's getting better. The numbers prove it. He's walking, sleeping, living again, thanks to methods that were not approved by the official medical team, Dr. Kamal added, entering the room. Dangerous, unscientific methods. Unscientific. Emily turned to him. Deep breathing, exercise, emotional therapy, those are in every modern medical manual. Not in ours. Emily looked around the room, at the closed faces, at Rashid watching her with barely hidden satisfaction. This isn't about protocol, she said quietly. This is because he was starting to be happy. And you don't want him happy. You want him obedient. Rashid stood, hands pressed against the table. You're out of line. No, I'm right. And you know it. The chamber doors burst open. Samir walked in, still in his pajamas, barefoot, breathing heavily as if he'd been running. What's going on here? Everyone stood up on reflex, except Emily. Your Highness, Rashid began. This matter doesn't concern. Answer the question. We're handling a human resources matter. Samir looked at Emily, then at his brother. You're firing her. Yes, for violating protocol and showing inappropriate behavior. Inappropriate behavior? Samir took a step forward. She saved my life. She's done more for me in 6 weeks than all of you have in 3 years. She crossed boundaries, Dr. Kamal said. That's undeniable. The only boundaries crossed here are those of basic decency. You're firing the only person who actually cared about me because she... What? Because she treated me like a human being? Because she's emotionally involved, Rashid said firmly. And so are you. And this cannot continue. Samir clenched his fists. I don't accept this dismissal. You don't have a choice. The council voted. 4-3, she leaves today. Then I'm firing the council. The council members gasped. Rashid went pale. You can't do that. Yes, I can. I'm the sheikh. You're a sheikh who can barely stand, Rashid exploded. A sheikh being manipulated by a foreign woman who knows nothing about our culture, our traditions. Enough. Samir slammed his hand on the table. The sound echoed through the room. Complete silence. Emily stays, Samir said, his voice dangerously calm. And if anyone tries to remove her by force, they'll answer directly to me. Understood? Rashid stared at him. You're choosing her over your own family? Over the kingdom? I'm choosing someone who treats me like a person, not like a chess piece. Samir, Emily said quietly, stop. He looked at her. I'm not letting them do this to you. You don't have a choice. Emily stood up, forcing a smile. They have power. I don't. And if you fight them because of me, you'll lose everything. I don't care. But I do. She took his hand, quickly, discreetly. Let me go, Samir. No. Please. The pain in his eyes was unbearable. 2 guards entered the room. Miss Carter, we need to escort you to your quarters so you can collect your belongings. Emily let go of his hand. Goodbye, Your Highness. It was an honor taking care of you. She walked out before the tears could fall. Samir tried to follow, but Rashid grabbed his arm. Let her go. Let me go. Let her go. Samir pulled his arm free, but 2 other council members were already blocking the door. Your Highness, please, this is for your own good. For my own good? Samir looked at all of them with contempt. You know nothing about my good. He left, slamming the door so hard that the echo thundered through the hall. In the corridor, Emily leaned against the wall, took a deep breath, and finally let the tears fall. Emily's suitcase weighed 30 pounds, but it felt like a ton as she dragged it down the palace corridor, escorted by 2 guards who looked like they were leading a criminal to her execution. Fatima appeared at the corner of the hallway. She stopped, looked at Emily with an expression that mixed guilt and duty. Emily stopped too. I came to say goodbye, Fatima said softly. You don't have to, I understand. Emily forced a smile. You were just doing your job. It's not just that. Fatima took a step closer. I was harsh with you last night, maybe too harsh. And I want you to know that. She took a deep breath. I saw what you did for him. I saw how he changed. And part of me hopes you find a way to come back. Emily felt her eyes sting. Fatima? He needs you. Fatima placed something in Emily's hand, a folded piece of paper. Don't open it now. Open it when you're on the plane. What is it? Fatima only smiled, sadly, and walked away. Emily put the paper in her pocket and kept walking. Riyadh International Airport was packed. Families saying goodbye, businessmen rushing, tourists taking photos. Emily sat at the boarding gate with her suitcase beside her, passport in her hands, and a hollow feeling in her chest that seemed to drain the life out of her. Flight 847 to New York, now boarding at gate 12. She stood up, grabbed her suitcase, took 3 steps toward the line forward. And then she heard it, shouting, noise, people running. Emily turned. Across the terminal, a crowd was parting like the Red Sea, and in the center, walking with difficulty, leaning on a cane, wearing a white tunic, and barefoot, was Samir. Behind him, 6 security guards tried to clear the way as passengers pulled out their phones, filming, shouting, "It's the Sheikh! What's he doing here? Is someone recording this?" Emily dropped her suitcase. "He can't be here," she whispered. "He can't." But he was, and he was coming straight toward her. Their eyes met across the crowded terminal, and Samir didn't look away, not for a single second. Emily started to walk, slowly, then faster, until she was running. They met in the middle of the terminal, surrounded by dozens of people filming, taking pictures, watching the impossible happen. "Are you out of your mind?" Emily gasped. "What are you doing here?" Samir was breathing hard, clearly exhausted but smiling. "Stopping you from making the biggest mistake of your life." "My mistake? Samir, you shouldn't be here. You can barely walk." "Then hold me." He dropped the cane. Emily grabbed his arm, desperate. "You're going to fall." "No, I'm not, because you're here. This is insane. You know that, right?" "I do, and I don't care." Samir held her face in his hands. "Emily Carter, you're not getting on that plane. I have to. I was fired, deported. Then I'll reverse it." "You can't reverse the council's decision." "Yes, I can, because I'm the Sheikh. And more importantly," he paused, his eyes shining, "because I love you." The entire terminal seemed to freeze. Emily felt her knees go weak. "What?" "I love you," Samir repeated, louder this time so everyone could hear. "I've loved you since the first day you walked into my suite and refused to leave. I love you because you're annoying, stubborn, funny, and the only person who made me remember what it feels like to be alive. And I'm not letting you go." Emily was crying now, laughing and crying at the same time. "You can't do this. Your family, the council, they'll destroy you. Let them." Samir pulled her closer. "I spent 3 years letting other people decide my life, letting fear and guilt control me. But you taught me that living isn't betrayal, and I choose to live with you. Samir, stay, please, stay with me." Emily looked around at the cameras, the guards, the crowd watching like it was a movie. Then she looked back at Samir, at the man who had once been impossible, intolerable, lost, and who now stood here in a crowded airport, barefoot and vulnerable, asking her to stay. "Are you sure?" she whispered. "Completely. Because if I stay, there's no going back. It'll be you and me against everyone." "Good," Samir smiled. "I like those odds." Emily laughed, a shaky, tearful sound, but real. "You're impossible. I know. It's part of my charm." And then, without warning, Samir knelt down. Right there. In the middle of Riyadh International Airport, with hundreds of people watching. The crowd gasped all at once. Emily covered her mouth with her hands. "Samir, get up." "No." He held her hand. "Emily Carter, you healed me when I thought I couldn't be healed. You made me laugh when I'd forgotten how. You gave me hope when I had none." His voice broke. "Marry me." The terminal exploded in cheers, applause, phones recording from every angle. Emily dropped to her knees in front of him, holding his face in her hands. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely sure. Because I'm just an American nurse with no money, no title, nothing to offer except love and sarcasm." Samir smiled through his tears. "That's all I ever wanted." "Then yes." Emily kissed his forehead. "Yes, I'll marry you, you impossible, crazy sheik." The crowd erupted. Security tried to control the scene, but it was too late. Dozens of videos were already being posted, shared, going viral. The Sheikh of Riyadh had just proposed to an American nurse in an airport, on his knees. And she had said yes. Samir stood with her help and pulled her into a tight embrace. "You won't regret this," he whispered in her ear. "I know." Emily laughed. "But you probably will. I'm counting on it." They stood there, holding each other in the middle of the chaos while the world watched. And somewhere in the Al-Hadi Palace, Rashid watched the viral videos online with an expression of pure horror. Because his brother had just done the unthinkable, and there was no turning back. The video reached 2 million views in 4 hours. Emily watched the numbers climb on her phone as the official car passed through the gates of Al-Hadi Palace. Beside her, Samir held her hand tightly, as if afraid she might disappear. "Are you sure about this?" she asked for the 10th time. "Completely," he answered for the 10th time. "Because there's still time for me to go back to the airport. Catch the next flight. Pretend none of this happened." Samir turned to face her. "Do you want to leave?" Emily looked into his eyes and sighed. "No, but I also don't want you to lose everything because of me." "Then let's make sure I don't." The car stopped at the main entrance. Rashid was already waiting, and he didn't look angry. He looked terrified. The council chamber was even tenser than the last time. The 7 council members were seated. Rashid sat in the center, but without his usual arrogance, there was something broken in his posture. Dr. Kamal sat beside him, holding a thick folder, looking uncomfortable. And Fatima, in the corner, watched everything closely. Emily and Samir entered hand in hand. Rashid didn't slam the folder on the table. He simply looked at his brother with an expression that mixed pain and desperation. "You don't understand what you've done," he said quietly. "You don't understand the risk." Samir frowned. "Risk? Rashid, I confessed my love to the woman I love. What's the risk in that?" "The risk of losing you again." Rashid burst out, standing up. "The risk of seeing you give yourself completely to someone, and then. He didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't have to. Silence filled the room like heavy smoke. Emily understood before Samir did. "You're afraid I'll hurt him," she said softly, "the same way Amira hurt him when she died." Rashid turned to her, his eyes shining. "You don't understand. No one does." He pointed at Samir. "When Amira died, I watched my brother fall apart. He didn't eat, he didn't sleep, he didn't talk. He just disappeared. And I swore I'd never let that happen again." Samir took a step forward. "So you kept me trapped, you kept me sick, I kept you safe?" Rashid hit his chest. "If you don't love, you can't lose. If you don't give yourself, you can't break. I did what I had to do to protect you. By isolating me, controlling me, keeping me from living, keeping you from suffering. But I was suffering," Samir shouted. "Every single day, in silence, alone, because you decided I was too fragile to make my own choices." Dr. Kamal cleared his throat. "Your Highness Rashid, perhaps it's time to—" "Quiet, Kamal," Rashid said. But without anger, just exhaustion. Emily looked at Dr. Kamal and realized he wasn't a villain. He was just a man following orders from someone he respected. "Dr. Kamal," she said gently, "do you really believe that keeping Samir sick was helping him?" Dr. Kamal looked away. I followed the protocol established by His Highness Rashid. He knows the Sheikh better than anyone. I simply did my duty." "No," Samir said firmly, "he doesn't know me. He knows the broken version of me that he helped create." Rashid turned to him as if he'd been slapped. "I protected you. You smothered me. Because I love you." Rashid's voice broke on the last word. And for the first time since Emily had met him, she saw tears in his eyes. "When Amira died, I held you while you cried," Rashid whispered. "I carried you when you couldn't walk, I fed you when you refused to eat, and I watched you want to give up on life." He wiped his eyes angrily. "I almost lost you, and that destroyed me too. I won't go through that again. I can't." The silence that followed was different. It wasn't anger. It was understanding. Samir stood still for a long moment. Then, slowly, he walked up to his brother and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Rashid, look at me." Rashid lifted his eyes. "I know you were trying to protect me. I know you acted out of love, but you can't keep me in a cage for the rest of my life just because you're afraid I'll fly and get hurt." Samir took a deep breath. Living means taking risks. Loving means taking risks. And yes, maybe I'll get hurt again. But I'd rather live one full day than survive 1,000 half-lived ones. "And what if you don't survive?" Rashid whispered. "What if it destroys you? Then Emily will help me rebuild." Samir looked at her and smiled, just like she already has once. Emily felt tears roll down her cheeks. Rashid looked at her, really looked, not with contempt, with fear. "How do I know you won't abandon him?" he asked, his voice trembling. "How do I know you'll stay when things get hard?" Emily took a step forward. "You don't know. You'll have to trust." She paused. "But I can tell you this. I've seen Samir at his worst. I've seen him have panic attacks at 3 a.m. I've seen him cry, I've seen him broken, and I didn't walk away. I held his hand and breathed with him until it passed." Her voice grew stronger. "I won't walk away now. I won't ever walk away, because I love him. Truly. Not the title, not the palace. Him." Rashid stayed silent, struggling with emotions he clearly didn't know how to process. One of the older counselors cleared his throat. Perhaps we can find some middle ground." Rashid turned, confused. "Middle ground? Yes. Conditions." The advisor looked at Emily. "Miss Carter must learn our customs, study our culture, respect our traditions. The wedding must follow full royal protocol, and," he paused, "there will be a 3-month adjustment period to ensure Miss Carter is prepared for life in the royal family." Emily swallowed hard. 3 months? "Not a test," the advisor corrected gently. "A period of learning. You will live in the palace. You'll learn what it means to be part of this family. And at the end, we will officially vote on approving the marriage." Samir opened his mouth to protest, but Emily squeezed his hand. I accept. Emily, I accept, she repeated, looking at Rashid. Because I understand. I understand that you're scared. I understand that you love your brother and want to protect him. And I want to prove to you that I won't hurt him, that I'll take care of him. That I'll stay. Always. Rashid stared at her for a long moment, then nodded. Just once. Small, but it was there. The senior advisor struck the gavel. Then it's decided. We'll proceed to the vote. Who approves the 3-month period before the official wedding? 5 hands went up immediately. Rashid hesitated, looked at Samir, then at Emily, and slowly raised his hand. Dr. Kamal followed. 7-0, the advisor announced, clearly surprised. Unanimous. The proposal is approved. Emily let out the breath she'd been holding. Samir pulled her into a tight hug. You won't regret this, he whispered. I know. The advisor stood, greeted Samir respectfully, and left one by one. Dr. Kamal stopped in front of Emily. Miss Carter, I'd like to apologize. I was following orders, but that doesn't excuse it. You've done for him what I couldn't do in 3 years. He extended his hand. I hope we can work together from now on. Emily shook his hand, smiling. I'd love that, Dr. Kamal. He left, looking relieved. Rashid was the last to go. He stopped at the door, looking at his brother. Samir, I'm sorry. For everything, Samir nodded. I know, and we'll talk, really talk, but for now, thank you. For voting yes, Rashid looked at Emily. Take care of him. Always, she promised. Rashid gave a sad smile and left. Fatima stepped forward, taking Emily's hands. Welcome to the family, dear, officially, or almost. She smiled. And just so you know, the wedding protocols are absurd. You'll have to approve 47 kinds of flowers. Emily blinked. 47? Yes. There's a spreadsheet, 3 meetings just for table decorations, and an entire committee dedicated to the menu. Fatima laughed. But I'll help you, I promise. Thank you, Fatima, for everything. Fatima hugged them both and left, closing the door behind her. Emily rested her head on Samir's chest. 3 months. We can do this. We can do anything. He lifted her chin. Together. Suddenly, Emily remembered. Oh, Fatima gave me a letter. In the hallway before I left the palace for the first time. She pulled a folded piece of paper from her jacket pocket, wrinkled, but intact. Samir watched as she opened and read it. Tears came almost instantly. What does it say? He asked, worried. Emily laughed through her tears and handed him the paper. Samir read aloud. Dear Emily, I've worked in this palace for 20 years. I've seen many things, but I've never seen anyone do for Sheikh Samir what you've done. You need to know the truth. Rashid isn't a villain. He's a terrified brother. When Amira passed away, Samir almost went with her, and Rashid nearly lost himself watching his brother suffer. Since then, he decided that protecting meant controlling. That if Samir didn't love, he couldn't be hurt. But you proved him wrong. Love doesn't destroy, love heals. Show him that. Show him you won't hurt Samir, that you'll stay. That you're strong enough for this life. And remember, 47 kinds of flowers, no joke. With love, Fatima. P.S. I always knew you were special. Ever since the first day you told the sheikh to breathe like a normal person. Samir finished reading and smiled, his eyes shining. She was trying to help you from the start. They all were, in their own way. Emily carefully folded the letter, even Rashid, especially Rashid. They stood there, holding each other, the letter between them, more than just paper. It was proof that even in the most unlikely places, love finds allies, and that sometimes the hardest battles are fought by those who love too much. Not too little. You know what's funny? Emily said, tucking the letter back into her pocket. I came to Riyadh thinking I'd take care of an impossible patient for a few weeks and then go home. And now I'm home. Samir kissed her forehead. Yes, you are. And there, in the empty council chamber, surrounded by ancient traditions and heavy expectations, they kissed. Finally, no interruptions, no fear, just love. And the absolute certainty that no matter how many flowers they had to approve, how many protocols they had to follow, or how many council members they had to convince, they would make it together. Day 1 of 3 months. Emily woke up at 5 a.m. to someone knocking on the door. Fatima walked in carrying a pile of books that looked heavier than Emily herself. Good morning. Time to learn royal etiquette. Emily looked at the books, then at Fatima, then back at the books. You're kidding. Protocol is no joke, dear. Fatima set the stack down on the table with a heavy thud. We've got hierarchy and royal titles, formal greetings in 47 different situations, history of the Al-Hadi family, royal dining etiquette. Oh, and this one's my favorite. How to walk in a long dress without tripping. Emily picked up the last book. That's a real thing? Unfortunately. Week 2, Emily sat in a room surrounded by 5 elderly ladies of the court, all watching her like hawks studying prey. Now, dear, one of them said, adjusting her glasses, show us the formal greeting for a level 2 foreign ambassador. Emily stood, made a graceful curtsy, kept her gaze lowered for exactly 3 seconds, and returned to standing. The ladies exchanged glances. Perfect, one of them admitted, surprised. Emily smiled, a small victory. Then another lady spoke. And now show the greeting for a prince of an allied kingdom during a summer evening ceremony. Emily blinked. That's different from the daytime greeting? Completely. Oh, for heaven's sake. Week 5. The meeting about flowers was entering its 3rd hour. The white lily symbolizes purity, but the cream lily represents elegance, the event coordinator explained, holding up samples. Which one do you prefer for the main hall tables? Emily looked at the 2 flowers. They looked identical. The white one? Excellent choice. The coordinator took notes. Now for the secondary tables. Desert rose or wild jasmine? Jasmine. Wonderful. And for the decorative columns, imported orchids or local tulips? Emily took a deep breath, remembering Fatima's letter. 47 types of flowers. No joke. Orchids. And for the entrance hallway, Fatima decides. Emily cut in. Whatever Fatima chooses, I approve. The coordinator blinked. But I need to keep my sanity. Fatima has flawless taste, she decides. Fatima, sitting in the corner, smiled proudly. Week 8, Emily was in the palace kitchen trying to learn how to make traditional mint tea under the strict supervision of the head chef. No, 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 the chef exclaimed, snatching the teapot from Emily's hands. 3 minutes of steeping. 3. You left it for 4. It's a 1-minute difference. It's the difference between perfection and disaster. Emily sighed but started over. Samir appeared in the doorway, hiding a smile. How's it going? I'm destroying mint leaves. How do you think it's going? He laughed, stepped in, and hugged her from behind. You're doing incredibly well. I'm losing my mind, but losing it gracefully. Emily turned her head and gave him a quick kiss. Stop distracting me. I have tea to not ruin. Week 11, the final council meeting before official approval. Emily sat in the same chair where she'd been fired months before. But this time, she wasn't afraid. She was tired, but confident. The eldest councilman flipped through the reports. Miss Carter has completed all etiquette courses with excellent marks. She has shown consistent respect for our traditions. She learned basic Arabic with a delightful accent, I might add. He smiled. And more importantly, during these 3 months, she's shown genuine dedication not only to Sheikh Samir, but to this kingdom and its people. Another councilman nodded. She visited hospitals, spoke with ordinary families, learned about our culture for real, not just surface protocol. Dr. Kamal stood. And I can confirm Sheikh Samir remains healthy, stable, and happy. Happier than I've seen him in years. Rashid, who had been silent, finally spoke. I voted in favor 3 months ago, with reservations. He looked at Emily. But today, I vote with certainty. You've proven yourself worthy. Not because of a title, because of who you are. Emily felt her eyes sting. Thank you, Your Highness. The eldest councilman struck the gavel. Then it's settled. Final vote. Who approves the marriage between Sheikh Samir Al-Hadi and Emily Carter? 7 hands rose. Unanimous. The marriage is officially approved. The councilman smiled. Let the preparations begin. Emily was in the preparation room, staring at the mirror, not recognizing the person looking back at her. The dress was a masterpiece, white silk with gold hand-embroidered details, delicate long sleeves, and a 3-meter train. Henna covered her hands in intricate patterns. A lace veil draped over her hair, held by a pearl tiara. She looked like a princess, and she was absolutely terrified. I can't do this, she whispered. Fatima, adjusting the veil, stopped. What? There are cameras, international press, hundreds of people, and I'm going to trip, or say something wrong, or... Emily. Fatima placed her hands on Emily's shoulders. Breathe. I can't. Like a normal person, Fatima finished with a smile. Your own words. Emily let out a shaky laugh. You remembered that? Of course I did. It's my favorite line. Fatima hugged her. You've got this. You conquered an impossible sheikh, convinced a stubborn council, and approved 47 types of flowers. You can do anything. Emily took a deep breath and nodded. Okay, let's do this. The ceremony took place in the palace's main garden, transformed into a fairy tale. Flowers everywhere, all 47 varieties, perfectly coordinated. Crystal chandeliers hung from the trees, a red carpet stretched over the green grass. Hundreds of guests sat in mahogany chairs, and in the center, beneath an arch covered in white roses, Samir waited. Wearing a traditional white tunic embroidered with gold thread, he looked like he had stepped out of a dream. The music began, an impossible blend of traditional Arabic instruments and jazz saxophone. Emily started walking. 1 step, 2, 3. She didn't trip, not even once. When she reached the altar, Samir held out his hand. "You look beautiful," he whispered. "So do you." Emily smiled. "Try not to trip over your tunic." He chuckled softly. The officiant began the ceremony in Arabic, then translated into English, and then came the vows. Samir went first. "Emily Carter, you came into my life like a storm. Stubborn, irritating, completely impossible to ignore." The guests laughed. "I tried to push you away, tried to scare you, tried to pretend I didn't need you, but you didn't leave. You held my hand through the worst of it. You taught me how to breathe when I thought I was dying. You showed me that living isn't betrayal. And you," his voice faltered, "you taught me how to love again." He paused, looking up at the sky for a moment. "Amira, wherever you are, thank you for showing me what true love is, and for giving me the strength to find it again." He turned his gaze back to Emily. "She would have loved you, I'm sure of it." Emily was openly crying now. Her turn. "Samir al-Hadi, I came to Riyadh thinking I'd be taking care of an impossible patient for a few weeks. I didn't expect to meet the most frustrating, stubborn, and beautiful person I've ever known." She wiped her tears. "You tested me, challenged me, made me want to quit. But you also made me laugh, made me believe, made me feel like I mattered. And when you asked me to stay, I realized I didn't want to leave." Her voice trembled. "My father passed away 3 years ago, and I know he'd be here today, probably telling terrible jokes and embarrassing everyone. I miss him, but I know he'd approve of you." She smiled through the tears. "And I want you to know this. You healed yourself, Samir. I just held your hand." Samir pulled her into a hug, completely forgetting about protocol. The guests applauded. The officiant, smiling, declared, "I now pronounce you husband and wife." Samir kissed Emily before the sentence was even finished. And the garden erupted in applause, music, and joy. The reception was unforgettable. Samir tripped over his tunic while walking into the ballroom. Emily burst out laughing. During dinner, Emily tried eating rice with her hands, a local tradition, and spilled half of it on her lap. Samir tried to help and spilled the rest. Fatima gave a hilarious speech about the 3-month trial period. Emily burned incense during a ceremony and had to open every window in the hall. Emily confused "good night" with "enjoy your meal" and left an ambassador very confused. Emily tried making mint tea and nearly caused a diplomatic incident with the chef. The guests laughed. Emily hid her face in her hands, but Fatima continued, her tone softening. "She never gave up. She learned. She grew. And she deserves to be here. Cheers to the newlyweds." Everyone raised their glasses. Then Rashid stood up. The room went silent instantly. Emily squeezed Samir's hand. Rashid walked to the center, took the microphone, and looked at both of them. I need to apologize. Publicly." His voice was trembling. "I did terrible things, thinking I was protecting my brother. I kept him trapped out of fear. I almost destroyed his happiness." He looked at Emily. "And I almost lost you before I even really met you." He walked toward the newlyweds table. "Emily, thank you for not giving up, for proving me wrong, for loving my brother the way he deserves to be loved." Tears were streaming down his face now. Samir stood, walked over to Rashid, and hugged him. The two brothers stayed there holding each other, crying, while years of pain and control finally dissolved. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. When they finally let go, Rashid smiled. "Now go dance with your wife before I cry more and ruin my reputation." The music started again. Samir held out his hand to Emily. "May I have this dance? You can have them all." They danced, awkwardly, stepping on each other's feet, laughing like children. And when the night ended, when the guests left, when the lights went out, Emily and Samir stayed in the empty garden, still in their wedding clothes, sitting on the ground among the flowers. "Honeymoon tomorrow," Samir said. "The Caribbean. 2 weeks. No protocol. No council. Nothing. Just me and you? Just us." Emily rested her head on his shoulder. "Perfect." And there, under the stars of Riyadh, the impossible sheikh and the stubborn nurse began their life together. Finally, completely, happily. The honeymoon in the Caribbean had been interesting. Samir had insisted he knew how to surf. Emily had tried to warn him that ocean waves weren't the same as palace pools, but he wouldn't listen. The first wave knocked him down in 3 seconds. He came up spitting salt water, hair plastered to his face, trying to keep his dignity. "That was strategic," he shouted. Emily, lying on the sand in sunglasses and thick layers of sunscreen, just waved. "Of course it was, darling. Very strategic." He tried again and fell, and again and again. On the 5th attempt, Emily took a picture she would treasure forever. Samir al-Hadi, Sheikh of Riyadh, surfboard on his head, total defeat on his face. She laughed so hard she cried. And Samir, seeing her laugh like that, free, happy, completely at ease, decided it was worth getting knocked down by waves every day just to hear that sound. Of course, Emily didn't fare much better. On the second day, she forgot to reapply sunscreen and turned as red as a shrimp. Samir spent the whole night applying aloe vera gel while she complained that she was literally cooking. "You're a nurse," he teased. "You should know about sun protection." "I do know about sun protection. I just forgot that the Caribbean sun is basically an oven." "You look like a lobster." "Samir, a very pretty lobster." "That doesn't help?" But he kept applying the gel, gentle and patient, and Emily realized this was the man she had married. Someone who cared for her in ridiculous moments just as much as in serious ones. Back at the palace, adjusting to married life came with its own comedic challenges. Emily was determined to learn Arabic. Samir was determined to learn how to make an American breakfast. They both failed spectacularly. One morning, Emily walked into the kitchen and greeted Fatima with what she thought was "good morning." Fatima stared at her. "You just said nice shoe." "What?" "Literally, nice shoe, as if you were greeting a piece of footwear." Samir, who was trying to make pancakes and had already burned 3, laughed so hard he nearly let the 4th one burn too. "Don't laugh at me," Emily protested. "You can't even make pancakes. Pancakes are impossible. How do you Americans make it look so easy?" "By following the recipe. I am following it. You put salt instead of sugar." Samir looked at the bowl, tasted the batter, and made a face. "Oh," Fatima sighed, took the bowl from his hands and took over. "You two are kitchen disasters, but adorable ones." Emily and Samir looked at each other and smiled. Adorable disasters. She could live with that. As the months passed, the idea for the clinic started to take shape. Emily worked tirelessly with Dr. Kamal, designing programs, training staff, establishing protocols. Samir used his influence to secure funding and official approval. And Rashid, surprisingly, became one of their strongest supporters. "I spent years trying to hide weakness," he said during a meeting, "but maybe it's time to show that true strength is admitting when we need help." The clinic opened its doors 6 months after the wedding. The first patient was Khalid, 28 years old. Severe trauma after an accident that took his wife's life. Emily recognized the story immediately. It was painfully familiar. Khalid resisted. He yelled. He refused treatment, exactly like Samir once had. During one particularly difficult session, he burst out, "I don't want to get better. I deserve to suffer." Emily had heard those words before, and she knew exactly what to say. "You don't deserve that," she said, firm but kind. "You deserve to live. You deserve to heal. And you deserve to forgive yourself. You don't understand. I understand more than you think." Emily sat beside him. "And I'll tell you something someone very stubborn once taught me. Surviving isn't a crime. And living isn't betrayal." Khalid looked at her, his eyes red from crying. "How do I do that?" "By breathing. One day at a time," Emily smiled. Like regular people, he let out a wet, surprised laugh. "You say that a lot." "Because it works." And slowly, day by day, session by session, Khalid began to get better. Samir sometimes watched the sessions with Khalid's permission. And in every word Emily spoke, in every technique she used, he saw reflections of his own journey. "It's strange," he said one night as they lay in bed, "seeing someone else go through what I went through. But now you can help," Emily said. "You're living proof that healing is possible." "We're proof," she kissed him softly. "Yes, we are." The official opening of the clinic came 1 year after their wedding. The hall was full. Kingdom officials, international press, representatives from mental health organizations around the world. And Khalid, now visibly healthier and at peace, sat in the front row as an honored guest. Emily stood on stage beside Samir, Dr. Kamal, and Rashid, wearing a formal dress that suddenly felt too tight. She'd woken up nauseated that morning. and the week before, and the week before that. But she had ignored it, blaming stress from the event. Samir took the microphone, smiling. It's with great joy that we opened today the Al-Hadi Integrated Healing Clinic, a place where physical and emotional health go hand in hand, where vulnerability isn't weakness, where healing isn't shame. Applause echoed through the hall. This clinic exists because of one person. Samir looked at Emily with so much love that her heart skipped a beat. My wife, she taught me that medicine goes beyond prescriptions, that healing starts with empathy, and that sometimes the best remedy is someone holding your hand and saying, breathe. More applause. Louder this time. Emily stood up to speak, but suddenly the room started spinning. The lights grew too bright. The floor seemed to move. Emily? Samir grabbed her arm right away. Are you okay? I just need air, she stumbled. Samir caught her before she could fall, panic written all over his face. Someone call a doctor. I am a doctor, doctor. Kamal was already running from the other side of the stage. Then call another one. Emily laughed even while dizzy. Samir, relax. How can I relax? You're fainting. I'm not fainting, I just need to sit. Samir carried her off the stage as if she were made of glass. The whole audience watched, worried, while cameras captured everything. Dr. Kamal quickly checked her vital signs backstage. Blood pressure normal, heart rate normal, breathing steady. He paused, looking at Emily with a curious expression. When was your last period? Emily froze. Samir froze. Fatima, who had run in from the back of the hall, gasped so loudly it could probably be heard 3 blocks away. She's pregnant. Fatima. Emily and Dr. Kamal shouted at the same time, but it was too late. The entire hall had heard and exploded in cheers and applause. Samir looked at Emily, then at Dr. Kamal, then back at Emily. I think so, Emily said, laughing and crying at once. The color drained from Samir's face. He sat down on the floor. Literally, just sat as if his legs had stopped working. I need to process this. Breathe, honey, Emily said, holding his hand. I am breathing, like regular people. I am. Rashid appeared, placing a hand on his brother's shoulder, smiling broadly. Congratulations, Samir. You're going to be a father. Samir looked up at him, eyes wide. I'm going to be a father. Yes, a father. Exactly. I'm going to be a father. And then Samir fainted, completely. Dr. Kamal sighed, shaking his head. Someone bring water and salts. The sheikh is down. Emily was laughing so hard she could barely breathe, tears running down her face. I'm your nurse, you idiot. You can't faint on my shift. When Samir finally woke up a few minutes later, the first thing he saw was Emily looking at him with that smile, half concern, half pure amusement. Hi, she said. Hi, he answered, still lying on the floor. I fainted? Completely. In front of everyone? Aha. It was epic. At least 50 cameras caught it on video. Samir groaned, covering his face with his hands. I'll never live this down. Never, Emily agreed, helping him sit up. But it was worth it, because you're going to be a father. Samir looked at her, and suddenly everything else disappeared. The cameras, the crowd, the embarrassment. We're going to be parents. Yes, we'll be terrible at it. Probably. You fainted news, and I call everyone an idiot. Samir laughed and pulled her into a tight hug. It's going to be perfect. Later, after the grand opening ended successfully, despite all the drama, after the congratulations, the hugs, and the photos, Khalid walked up to Samir. Your Highness, I wanted to thank you. Samir turned, surprised. For what? For showing me healing is possible. Khalid wiped his eyes, trying to keep his emotions steady. I saw you. I saw how you were a year ago, in old videos, in the stories people tell, and I see you now, healthy, happy, in love. And I thought, if he did it, maybe I can too. Something broke open inside Samir. He hugged Khalid tightly. The same way Rashid had held him so many times, the same way Emily had held him on his hardest nights. You can, Samir whispered. I promise. It's hard. There will be bad days, but you can. And you're not alone. Khalid cried on his shoulder. And in that embrace, the circle was complete. The patient who had been healed was now helping others heal. Pain had turned into purpose. Trauma had become wisdom. And the darkness had finally given way to light. At sunset, Emily and Samir stood on the balcony of the royal suite, the same place they'd stood so many times during that wild year. Samir was behind her, arms around her waist, their hands intertwined over the stomach that didn't yet show but already carried their greatest gift. I still can't believe it, he whispered against her hair. Me neither. It feels surreal. We're going to be parents, and we'll be terrible at it at first. Samir laughed softly. Probably. but we'll learn, together. Emily turned her head and kissed his chin. Thank you. For what? For teaching me how to love again. For showing me it's worth taking the risk. For everything. I should be thanking you. You taught me how to live. You saved me. You saved yourself, Samir. Emily turned fully toward him, holding his face in her hands. You did the hard work. You faced your fears. You chose to heal. I just held your hand. Then we taught each other. Samir kissed her forehead. Together. They stayed there, wrapped in each other's arms, as the sun set over Riyadh, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. And Emily thought about everything that had happened. The 15 nurses who had run away before her. The impossible sheikh no one could save. The folded letter Fatima had given her, full of wisdom and hope. The 3 months of absurd protocols and 47 types of flowers. The airport where everything changed. The wedding that united 2 cultures and 2 souls. And now, a clinic full of hope, a marriage full of love, a life full of purpose, and a baby on the way. You know what's funny? Emily said, resting her head on his chest. I came here thinking I'd take care of an impossible patient for a few weeks and then go home. And I ended up finding my home, my family, my future. She looked up at him, smiling through her happy tears. I ended up finding everything. Samir held her tighter, as if he wanted to keep that moment forever. We both did. And there, on the balcony of Al-Hadi Palace, as Riyadh glowed beneath the starlit sky and the first star of the evening appeared on the horizon, 2 souls that had once been broken, one by deep trauma, the other by loneliness and loss, were finally whole. The nurse no one could stand had healed the impossible sheikh, and together they had healed each other. And now they would spend the rest of their lives healing the world. One patient at a time, one breath at a time, one hand held at a time, like normal people. Because in the end, that was what made all the difference. Not the titles, not the palace, not the traditions or the protocols, but the simple humanity of 2 people refusing to give up on each other. It was love that healed when medicine couldn't. It was vulnerability that brought strength. And it was the courage to breathe together when everything seemed impossible. Their story didn't end there. It was only beginning. Because true love isn't the happy ending. It's the start of all the others. The end. And what about you? If you were Emily, would you have agreed to care for the impossible patient? Or would you have run away like the 15 nurses before her? Tell us in the comments. We want to know everything you felt listening to this story. Every laugh, every tear, every moment that made you believe love and healing can change everything. On a scale from 0 to 10, what score would you give this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to receive more touching stories like this one. See you next time.